CEO accidentally walks in on her changing and falls in love at first sight. An unforgettable story for my beautiful family. Some men spend their entire lives chasing power, only to discover that true devastation arrives in a single, unguarded moment, and Josh Bowman was about to learn exactly how violent awakening could be. The charity gala glittered with the kind of calculated elegance that money could rent, but never truly own. Crystal chandeliers scattered light across a ballroom filled with people who measured their worth in influence and connections. Josh moved through the crowd with practiced ease, shaking hands that meant nothing, smiling at conversations he would forget before dawn arrived. He had conquered rooms like this since he was young enough to believe success meant something. Now, standing at the pinnacle of everything he had fought to build, he felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not pride, just an endless gray expanse where achievement should have lived. Every handshake felt hollow. Every congratulation rang false. He was 35 and exhausted by his own victories. The champagne tasted expensive and empty. The laughter around him sounded manufactured. Even the admiring glances from beautiful women in designer gowns stirred nothing inside him. He had dated enough of them to know that beauty without substance was just another form of emptiness. "Josh, darling, you simply must meet the ambassador's wife." Someone chirped at his elbow, but he had already turned away, seeking escape from the suffocating attention. The upper floor promised silence. He climbed the stairs 2 at a time, loosening his tie as he went, desperate for a moment alone. The noise from below faded into a distant hum. His reflection caught in a hallway mirror showed him exactly what he had become: polished, successful, and completely dead inside. A row of preparation suites lined the hallway, their doors identical. He reached for what he thought was the lounge, pushed it open, and stepped into a moment that would splinter his entire existence. The room glowed amber and gold, soft light pooling across walls draped in silk. And there, caught between clothing and skin, stood a woman who turned at the sound of the door, her eyes finding his before either of them could think to look away. Time shattered. Josh had seen beautiful women his entire life. He had dated models and actresses, brilliant minds in elegant bodies, women who moved through the world like they owned it. But this woman, standing there in nothing but surprise and vulnerability, she was different. Her eyes held depths that terrified him, intelligence and fire, and something wounded that made his chest ache without understanding why. Her skin glowed in the amber light, and he noticed the graceful curve of her shoulders, the strength in the way she held herself even caught in such an intimate moment. She was stunning, yes, but it was more than that. She carried herself with a dignity that no circumstance could strip away. She did not scream, did not gasp or clutch at fabric to cover herself. She simply stood there, frozen in the same paralysis that gripped him, and for a moment that stretched into forever. They stared at each other like two people recognizing something they did not have words for. The air between them crackled with electricity. Josh felt his heart hammering against his ribs, felt heat flood through his body, felt something fundamental shift in the architecture of who he was. This was not attraction. This was recognition. Like his soul had been searching for her without knowing it, and now that he found her, nothing would ever be the same. Josh started, his voice rough and unfamiliar in his own ears. "I am so sorry. I thought this was the lounge," she finished, her voice steady despite the color rising in her cheeks. The sound of her voice hit him like a physical thing, rich and warm, and doing something dangerous to his equilibrium. "It's down the hall." "Yes, I am so sorry." He should have left immediately, should have backed out of the room and shut the door and let her have her dignity. But his feet would not move. His eyes would not release hers. Something had hooked into his ribcage and was pulling hard, demanding he stay, demanding he know her name, demanding he understand why this felt like falling and flying simultaneously. There was a charge in the air, thick and undeniable. He could see her pulse fluttering at her throat. Could see the slight tremor in her hands. She felt it too, this impossible connection that made no sense but felt more real than anything he had experienced in years. "You should go," she said quietly, but there was no anger in her voice. Just something that sounded like she felt it too, this strange magnetic pull neither of them could name. Josh forced himself to step backward, his body protesting the distance. "I really am sorry. I did not mean to—" "I know, 2 words, but they held understanding and something else. Something that suggested she saw him. Not the polished exterior, not the reputation, but something deeper. The real him that he kept hidden from everyone. The door closed between them, but the image of her eyes burned behind his own. Josh stood in the hallway, his heart hammering like he had run miles instead of opened a door. His hands trembled, his breath came short. Something fundamental had just shifted in the architecture of his life, and he had no idea how to process it. He leaned against the wall, trying to steady himself, and failed completely. His mind replayed the moment in obsessive detail, the way the light had caught in her hair, the intelligence in her eyes, the quiet strength in how she had handled an impossibly awkward situation. Most women would have panicked or screamed or made him feel like a predator. She had done none of those things. She had simply looked at him with eyes that saw everything and judged nothing. He returned to the gala, but the world had changed colors. Every conversation felt distant, muffled, like he was underwater. People spoke to him and he nodded without hearing them. Music played and he could not name a single song. Everything felt flat and two-dimensional, except the memory of her eyes. He left early, ignoring protests from people whose names he could not remember, and drove home through streets that blurred past his windows. His penthouse felt emptier than it ever had. He stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, seeing nothing but her face reflected in the glass. Sleep was impossible. Josh lay in his bed, staring at the ceiling while Manhattan glowed beyond his windows. He replayed the moment obsessively. Her eyes, the way she held herself, the steadiness of her voice even caught in such vulnerability. Who was she? Why had she been there? Would he ever see her again? The questions tormented him through the night and into the grey morning. His coffee tasted like ash. His reflection showed someone who looked haunted. He had spent years perfecting control over every aspect of his life, and now one accidental moment had demolished all of it. His assistant Brennan noticed his distraction during their meeting, her eyebrows rising when he asked her to repeat herself for the 3rd time. "Are you ill?" she asked bluntly, studying him with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "No, I am." He paused, then shook his head. "I need you to find someone for me." "A someone?" "A woman who was at the gala. I do not know her name, but I need to find her." Brennan studied him with the sharp perception that made her invaluable. Something shifted in her expression, surprise, maybe concern. "Josh, you have never asked me to track down anyone before. Who is this woman?" That is what I need to find out. You realize how this sounds?" "I do not care how it sounds." His voice came out harder than he intended, desperation bleeding through. "Just find her, please." It took Brennan less than 2 days to produce a name, a profession, and a location. Damila Rose, architect, senior designer at one of the most respected firms in the city. Josh read the file she compiled and felt something clench in his chest at the photograph, paperclipped to the corner. Those same eyes that had haunted him, now staring back from glossy paper, but the photo did not capture what he had seen. Did not capture the depth in those eyes, the intelligence, the fire. Paper could not hold what she was. He had built an empire by knowing what he wanted and taking it. But this felt different. This felt fragile in a way that terrified him. You could not acquire a person like you acquired property. You could not negotiate your way into someone's heart. This required something he had never needed before, genuine vulnerability. For the first time in his adult life, Josh Bowman had no strategy, no plan, no certainty that he could obtain what he wanted most. And what he wanted, with a clarity that shook him to his foundation, was to know the woman with the haunting eyes. But he knew, with equal clarity, that one wrong move could destroy any chance he had. She was not someone who would be impressed by money or power. She was not someone who could be bought or manipulated. She was someone who would see through any performance, any calculation. She required truth, and Josh was not sure he remembered how to be truthful anymore. But for her, he would learn. For her, he would strip away every defense and become vulnerable in a way that terrified him more than any risk he had ever taken. Because if she had felt nothing when their eyes met, then Josh suspected that no amount of power or wealth or influence would ever fill the sudden howling emptiness that had opened inside him. He stood at his office window, watching the city wake beneath him, and understood that everything before this moment had been preparation. His entire life had been leading to a door opened by mistake, to a woman caught between one moment and the next, to eyes that saw through every wall he had ever built. Find out everything, he told Brennan quietly. But be discreet. I do not want to frighten her. Brennan nodded, but there was something gentle in her expression that Josh had never seen before. Be careful, Josh. This one feels different. I know, his voice came out rough. That is what terrifies me. That was the problem. That was the terrifying, exhilarating, devastating problem. This one felt different because this one mattered in a way nothing else ever had. And Josh Bowman, who had spent his entire life winning, suddenly understood what it meant to have something to lose. The fear should have stopped him, should have made him walk away from this impossible feeling that promised nothing but risk. But he could not, would not, because for the first time in years he felt alive. And he would rather burn trying to reach her than return to the numbness that had defined his existence before she looked at him with those extraordinary eyes. Chapter 2. The Walls She Built. Josh appeared at Tamala's firm on a morning when rain hammered against the windows and the city smelled like wet concrete and possibility. The receptionist's eyes widened when he gave his name, and within minutes, whispers rippled through the office like wind through grass. Tamala looked up from her drafting table to find him standing in her doorway, Rain still clinging to his expensive coat, looking somehow smaller and more human than he had at the gala. Water dripped from his hair. His usual polished appearance was softened by the weather, making him look younger, more vulnerable. Her heart kicked against her ribs, but she kept her face carefully neutral. "Mr. Bowman," she said coolly, proud of how steady her voice sounded despite the chaos in her chest. "This is unexpected. I wanted to apologize properly," Josh said, and the rawness in his voice caught her off guard. He sounded genuinely distressed, not at all like the confident man whose reputation preceded him. "What happened at the gala, I have not been able to stop thinking about it, about how badly I invaded your privacy. You opened a door. It was a mistake." She kept her tone professional, distant, even as something inside her responded to the sincerity in his eyes. It was more than that. He stepped into her office, and she noticed how he kept his distance, respectful of her space in a way that surprised her. Most powerful men assumed they owned whatever room they entered. "I have not been able to think about anything else, and I know how that sounds. I know you probably think I'm just another arrogant man who sees something he wants and assumes he can have it. But this is not that. Then what is it?" The question came out sharper than she intended, but she was tired of games, tired of men who spoke in riddles and expected her to decode their intentions. Josh met her eyes, and the vulnerability there made her breath catch. "I do not know. That is what terrifies me." The honesty in those words hit her harder than any smooth line could have. She had expected charm, expected manipulation, expected the practiced seduction of someone used to getting what he wanted. Instead, he stood before her looking lost and uncertain, like a man who had wandered into unfamiliar territory without a map. Tamala wanted to dismiss him. She had learned early that powerful men were dangerous, that they collected women like art, admiring them until something shinier caught their attention. She had watched friends become trophies, watched talented women reduced to accessories on the arms of men who would discard them without a second thought. She had watched her own mother make that mistake, falling for a man who promised everything and delivered nothing but heartbreak. She had sworn she would never follow that path, never let her guard down for someone who saw her as a prize to be won rather than a person to be known. She would not be one of them. "I appreciate the apology," she said firmly, folding her arms across her chest. "But I think it is best if we leave it at that." Something flickered in Josh's expression, hurt maybe, or disappointment, but he nodded slowly. "I understand. Thank you for hearing me out." He turned to leave, and Tamala felt an unexpected stab of regret. She pushed it down, returning her attention to her work, telling herself she had made the right choice. The safe choice, the smart choice. But her hand shook slightly as she picked up her pencil, and the designs in front of her suddenly seemed less important than they had moments before. The flowers arrived the next morning. Not roses or anything predictable, but a stunning arrangement of proteas and succulents, dramatic and architectural in a way that showed he had paid attention to her design aesthetic. The card read simply, "For what it is worth, that moment changed my life. Josh." Tamala stared at the arrangement for a long moment, her fingers tracing the exotic blooms. He had not sent something generic. He had thought about what she would appreciate, what would speak to her sensibilities. That attention to detail unsettled her more than grand gestures would have. She gave the flowers to her assistant and tried not to think about the handwriting. Obviously his own, and not some secretary's. Tried not to notice how her office felt emptier once the arrangement was gone. The notes started arriving after that. Handwritten letters on heavy paper, never pushy or demanding, just honest in a way that made her chest ache. He wrote about how he could not sleep, how he kept seeing her eyes in every crowd, how he had never believed in moments that could alter everything until the door opened and there she stood. Each letter revealed more of himself. He wrote about feeling trapped in a life that looked perfect from the outside but felt hollow, about achieving everything he thought he wanted only to realize none of it mattered, about the loneliness of success and the emptiness of victories that impressed everyone except himself. The vulnerability in those letters chipped away at her defenses. This was not a man trying to seduce her with pretty words. This was a man trying to be seen, trying to connect, trying to be honest in a world that probably rewarded him for being anything but. "This is insane," she told her best friend Solène over wine one evening after the 5th letter had arrived. "He does not even know me." "Maybe that is the point," Solène suggested, refilling their glasses. "See, maybe he wants to. Men like him do not want to know women. They want to possess them. Has he acted like that? From what you have told me, he has been respectful." "Persistent, yes, but respectful." Tamala could not argue with that. Josh had not shown up at her apartment or her favorite restaurants, had not sent lavish gifts or made grand public gestures. He had simply written honest letters and waited for her to respond. But doubt crept in when Josh appeared outside her building in the rain one evening, waiting without an umbrella like some kind of fool. Tamala watched from the lobby, torn between irritation and something softer, before grabbing her own umbrella and pushing through the doors. "What are you doing?" she demanded, though her voice lacked the sharpness she intended. "Hoping you will talk to me," Josh said, rain streaming down his face, plastering his hair to his forehead. "Even if it is just to tell me to go away. I will take 5 minutes of your anger over a lifetime of wondering. You are getting soaked. I do not care." And he genuinely did not seem to. He stood there like a man who had forgotten what physical discomfort felt like, focused entirely on her. "Please, Tamala, just 5 minutes. That is all I ask." Tamala stared at him, this powerful man reduced to standing in the rain like a lovesick fool, and something in her carefully constructed walls began to crack. Because if this was performance, it was the most committed performance she had ever seen. And some part of her, the part that still believed in possibility despite everything, wanted to believe it was real. "One coffee," she heard herself say, surprised by her own words. "That is all." The smile that broke across Josh's face was worth more than all the careful distance she had maintained. It transformed him from intimidating to human, from powerful to hopeful. "One coffee. I will take it." They found a small cafe where no one recognized him, where they could sit in a corner booth and talk without interruption. Josh asked about her work, and his questions were not polite small talk, but genuine curiosity. He wanted to understand her vision for sustainable design, her frustration with how communities were built without thought for the people who would live in them. "You care deeply about this," he observed, watching her gestures become more animated as she spoke. "I care about creating spaces where families can thrive, where children can play safely and parents can breathe without choking on stress. Architecture should not just be about beauty, it should be about humanity, about making people's lives better in tangible ways." That is remarkable. Most people in your position focus on aesthetics or prestige. You focus on impact. Tamala shook her head, uncomfortable with the praise. "It is just what should be normal. Buildings shape lives. We have a responsibility to think about those lives." But Josh was looking at her like she had revealed something profound, and for the first time, Tamala allowed herself to wonder if maybe, just maybe, this man was different. One coffee became two, then three. Josh told her about the loneliness of success, how he had everything and felt nothing, how his life had become an endless series of accomplishments that meant nothing because there was no one to share them with. He spoke about his childhood, growing up with parents who measured love in achievements and left him feeling like he was never quite enough. "That sounds empty," Tamala said quietly, recognizing echoes of her own experiences. "It was, until I opened a door by mistake and suddenly understood what I had been missing." They walked through the city as evening fell, talking about everything and nothing. Josh made her laugh with self-deprecating stories that revealed someone far more human than his reputation suggested. He told her about a disastrous attempt to cook dinner for himself that ended with the fire department showing up, about getting lost in his own building because he never used the service elevators, about small moments of everyday failure that made him seem less like an untouchable mogul and more like just a man. Tamala found herself relaxing, letting her guard down degree by careful degree. She told him about her own struggles, about fighting to be taken seriously in a field dominated by men who often dismissed her ideas before hearing them, about the satisfaction of seeing her designs become places where real families built real lives. When they finally stopped on a bridge overlooking the river, the city lights reflecting on dark water like fallen stars, Josh turned to her with an intensity that stole her breath. "I know you do not trust this. I know you have every reason to think I am just playing some game. But Tamala," her name sounded like prayer in his mouth, reverent and desperate. "Meeting you felt like waking from a decades-long sleep. And I do not want to go back to that numbness. Please, just give me a chance to prove this is real." Tamala looked at him. Really looked at him, and saw sincerity in every line of his face. Saw vulnerability in eyes that probably showed that to no one else. Saw a man who seemed as terrified and bewildered by this connection as she was. Saw someone willing to risk rejection and humiliation just for the chance to know her. "One chance," she whispered, making a decision that felt both dangerous and inevitable. "Do not make me regret it." Josh's exhale sounded like relief and joy mixed together. "I will not. I swear to you, I will not." And standing there on the bridge, with the city glowing around them, and something fragile and terrifying building between them, Tamala let herself believe him. She let herself believe that maybe fairy tales could exist after all, that maybe powerful men could be vulnerable, that maybe, just maybe, love could bridge any divide. It was the most dangerous thing she had ever done. And God help her, she wanted to do it anyway. Chapter 3. When Love Ignites. The weeks that followed felt like living inside a dream that Tamala kept expecting to shatter. Josh showed up not with grand gestures, but with genuine presence, bringing her coffee during late work nights, listening to her vent about difficult clients, remembering small details she mentioned in passing and bringing them up weeks later. He did not try to fix her problems or offer solutions she had not asked for. He simply listened, truly listened, in a way that made her feel valued and understood. When she complained about a client who kept dismissing her sustainable design recommendations, Josh did not tell her how to handle it. He just said, "That sounds frustrating. You know your work better than anyone." And somehow that simple validation meant more than any advice. He introduced her to his world, but not as an ornament to display. When he invited her to events, he asked her opinion on projects, genuinely listened to her perspective, valued her insights. When she suggested improvements to one of his development plans, pointing out how green space could be better, integrated to serve the surrounding community, he did not dismiss her as an outsider offering unwanted input. "You are better at this than half my staff," he told her after one particularly heated discussion about accessibility and community impact. "I am just saying what makes sense." "No, you are seeing what everyone else missed. That is rare." And he meant it. The next day, he brought her into meetings with his team and championed her ideas, giving her full credit and treating her expertise with the respect it deserved. Tamala felt herself falling, felt her walls crumbling brick by careful brick. Josh seemed determined to prove that his interest went beyond the physical, beyond the initial attraction. He wanted to know her mind, her heart, her dreams. He asked about her childhood, her family, what shaped her into who she was. And when she talked, he listened with an attention that made her feel like the most important person in the world. And then there was the way he looked at her, like she was air and he was drowning. Like she was light, and he had spent his whole life in darkness. Like she was everything he never knew he needed until he found her. Tamala brought him into her world too, and Josh embraced it with an enthusiasm that surprised her. He showed up at the community center where she volunteered, rolling up his sleeves to help paint murals with neighborhood kids. He did not stand back and watch or write a check and leave. He got paint in his hair and on his expensive clothes, laughing with children who had no idea who he was, just that he was the funny man who painted a giraffe that looked more like a weird horse. He attended her godmother's birthday party, where Celestine Okafor regarded him with frank skepticism that would have sent most men running. Celestine was a formidable woman who had helped raise Tamala and took her protective duties seriously. She grilled Josh about his intentions, his character, his understanding of what it meant to love a woman like Tamala. Josh answered every question honestly, never deflecting or trying to charm his way through. And when Celestine finally gave a grudging nod of approval, Josh looked as relieved as if he had passed the most important test of his life. "That boy is in deep," Celestine muttered to Tamala later. "Just make sure he treats you right." "He does," Tamala said, and realized she meant it. Realized that somewhere along the way, she had stopped waiting for Josh to reveal himself as just another disappointing man. She had started believing that what they had was real. Their first kiss happened on her apartment rooftop, the city spreading below them like a carpet of stars. They had been talking about nothing, about everything, sharing a bottle of wine and just enjoying each other's presence, when Josh suddenly went quiet. "What?" Tamala asked, noticing the shift in his energy. "I'm trying to figure out how to ask if I can kiss you without sounding like I am 15. His confession came out adorably uncertain, and she loved him for it. She laughed, nervous and exhilarated, her heart racing. "You could just do it. I do not want to assume. I do not want to—" Tamala kissed him, cutting off his worried rambling, and felt the world tilt on its axis. Josh made a sound low in his throat. his hands coming up to frame her face with a gentleness that made her ache. The kiss started soft, tentative, like they were both afraid of breaking something precious. Then it deepened. Heat flooded through Tamala's body, turning her bones to liquid fire. Josh kissed like he was memorizing her, like she was the most important thing he would ever touch, like he had been waiting his whole life for this moment. His fingers threaded through her hair, his body pressed against hers. And Tamala forgot how to breathe, forgot how to think, forgot everything except the feeling of his mouth on hers and the rightness of being in his arms. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against hers. "I am in trouble," he whispered, his voice rough. "Why?" "Because I think I am falling in love with you, and that terrifies me more than anything I have ever felt." Tamala's heart hammered so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. "Good, because I think I am falling too." Their relationship intensified after that night. The physical attraction they had been carefully managing finally had permission to exist. They could not be in the same room without touching, his hand on the small of her back, her fingers laced through his, stolen kisses that left them both breathless. Josh gave her a key to his penthouse, and she started leaving her things there, her favorite books on his shelves, her toothbrush in his bathroom, her presence woven into the fabric of his space. He kept a drawer at her apartment filled with his things, proof that he belonged in her world as much as she belonged in his. They made love for the first time on a night when rain drummed against the windows and the world felt small and safe. Josh was reverent, taking his time, worshipping every inch of her skin like it was sacred ground. He whispered how beautiful she was, how long he had wanted this, how perfect she felt in his arms. Tamala had never felt so seen, so cherished, so utterly claimed and claiming in return. Every touch was a promise. Every kiss was a vow. Every whispered word of love felt like truth carved into her soul. Afterward, tangled in sheets with her head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat slowly return to normal, Tamala felt something settle in her soul. This was real. This was safe. This was home. This was what she had been searching for without knowing it. This perfect sense of belonging. "I love you," Josh said into the darkness, his fingers tracing patterns on her bare shoulder. "I know it is too soon. I know I sound insane, but I have never been more certain of anything." "I love you too," Tamala whispered, and felt him tense beneath her, like he had not dared hope she would say it back. "Really?" She lifted her head to look at him, seeing wonder and disbelief and joy warring in his expression. "Really? You have somehow become everything to me, and that terrifies me too. We can be terrified together." They talked long into the night, sharing secrets they had told no one else. Josh spoke about his difficult childhood, about parents who measured love in achievements and left him feeling hollow no matter what he accomplished, about the first time he realized that no amount of success would ever make them proud, because their disappointment was not about him at all, but about their own unfulfilled dreams. Tamala revealed her fears about never being enough, about being reduced to how she looked instead of what she could do, but watching her mother waste years on a man who took and gave nothing back, about swearing she would never make that mistake, never give her power away to someone who did not deserve it. "You are everything," Josh told her fiercely, his arms tightening around her. "Your brilliance, your passion, your huge heart, you are so much more than you give yourself credit for. You make me believe that. Then, I am doing my job." They planned a future with the certainty of two people who had found their missing piece. Josh started talking about marriage in concrete terms, about building something permanent and true. He spoke about children, about creating a family neither of them had truly experienced growing up, about doing it better than what was done to them. "I want to do it right," he said one night, his hand resting on her stomach in a gesture that felt prophetic. "I want to be the father I never had, And I want to watch you be the mother you will be, fierce and loving and absolutely terrifying to anyone who threatens our kids." Tamala laughed, but tears pricked her eyes. "You already know me so well. I plan to spend the rest of my life learning more." For months, Tamala existed in a bubble of happiness she had not known was possible. She woke up wrapped in Josh's arms. She fell asleep planning their future. She believed, with her whole heart, that she had found her soulmate, that the universe had conspired to bring them together through that accidental door opening, that everything in her life had been leading to this man and this love. Her godmother noticed the glow radiating from her. "You are happy," Celestine observed, studying Tamala with knowing eyes. "I am. He is everything I did not know I needed. Just be careful, baby. Men that powerful sometimes have priorities that do not include us. I have seen it too many times. Josh is not like that. He loves me. I know he does." "I hope you are right." Tamala dismissed the warning. She knew Josh. She knew his heart. She had seen him vulnerable and uncertain and real. Nothing could shake what they had built together. Their love was solid, tested, true. She could not have been more wrong. The day everything shattered started like any other. Tamala finished a morning meeting and headed to Josh's office for lunch, the way she did most days. They had fallen into comfortable rhythms. Stolen lunch hours, quick kisses in hallways, text messages that made her blush during boring presentations. Simple intimacies that spoke of partnership and comfort. She arrived early and heard his voice through the partially open door. Something in his tone made her pause, made her hand freeze on the doorknob. It was flat, emotionless, businesslike in a way she had never heard him use before. This was not the Josh she knew. This was someone else entirely. "The relationship has served its exact purpose," Josh was saying, his voice cold enough to frost glass. "The board is satisfied with the optics. Diverse, educated, respected in her field, exactly what we needed to soften my image before the merger." Tamala's heart stopped beating. The world tilted sideways. The floor seemed to drop away beneath her feet. "No, I understand the timeline," Josh continued, unaware of her presence in the hallway, unaware that he was destroying her with every word. 6 months was the recommendation, and we have met that threshold. The demographic data supports moving forward now." She backed away from the door, her vision tunneling, her breath coming in sharp gasps that sounded too loud in the quiet hallway. Every tender moment recontextualizing itself into calculation. Every whispered promise becoming manipulation. Every time he said, "I love you," transforming into a lie so perfect she had believed it completely. She was not his redemption. She was his strategy. A demographic data point. A box checked on some corporate checklist. Everything, all of it, had been orchestrated. The pursuit, the vulnerability, the love. All of it designed to soften his image, to make him more palatable, to serve some purpose she had never even known existed. The humiliation burned hotter than the heartbreak. Tamala made it to the elevator before the tears started, before her knees went weak, before the sob building in her chest finally broke free. She stood in that elevator, surrounded by mirrors, reflecting her devastation from every angle, and watched herself shatter in real time. How had she been so stupid? How had she fallen for every line, every gesture, every carefully calculated moment of vulnerability? She prided herself on seeing through manipulation, on being too smart to be anyone's fool. And yet, she had handed Josh her entire heart on a silver platter and watched him use it for optics. By the time she reached her apartment, Tamala had already begun planning her exit. She would not give him the satisfaction of confronting him. She would not break down or demand explanations or give him a chance to lie more convincingly. She would simply disappear, the same way she apparently meant nothing. Solène found her that night, surrounded by boxes, systematically erasing Josh from her life. Every gift he had given her went into donation bags. Every photo was deleted with savage satisfaction. Every trace of him removed with the precision of someone performing surgery on their own heart. What happened? Solène demanded, taking in the destruction. "I was a project," Tamala said, her voice hollow and unfamiliar. "A strategy. God, Solène, I believed him. I gave him everything, and it was all fake. All calculated, all designed to make him look better. Tell me what he did. Tell me everything." Tamala repeated what she had heard, and with each word the hurt crystallized into something harder. Anger, determination. She would survive this. She had survived worse. She would not let this destroy her. She would rebuild herself from these ashes and emerge stronger. But underneath the anger lived a grief so profound she could barely breathe around it. Because for months she had been happy. She had believed in fairy tales. She had let herself fall completely, holding nothing back, trusting without reservation. And none of it had been real. None of it had mattered. She had been nothing but optics and timelines and demographic data. The man she loved did not exist. He never had. Chapter 4. The Betrayal That Breaks. Tamala moved through the motions of leaving with mechanical precision. She contacted the prestigious firm she had turned down months earlier, the one based across the country that had wanted her badly enough to wait. They were thrilled she had reconsidered, asking no questions about her sudden change of heart. She gave notice at her current position, citing family reasons that no one questioned. Her colleagues threw her a small goodbye party, and she smiled through it, accepting their well wishes while feeling nothing inside. She had become very good at smiling while dying internally. She boxed up her apartment, donated everything that reminded her of Josh, and blocked his number before he could call. Every gift he had given her went to charity. Every photo was deleted with ruthless efficiency. She would erase him as completely as he had played her. The hardest part was telling Celestine. Her godmother listened to the whole story, her expression growing darker with each word. When Tamala finished, her voice hoarse from reliving every painful detail, Celestine pulled her close and let her finally break down. Tamala sobbed into her godmother's shoulder, great wrenching cries that felt like they were tearing her apart from the inside. "That boy is going to regret this," Celestine said fiercely, her own voice thick with rage on Tamala's behalf. "I promise you that. I do not want revenge. I just want to forget him. I want to wake up one morning and not feel this crushing weight on my chest. I want to stop seeing his face every time I close my eyes." But forgetting proved impossible, because Tamala carried a secret she had been planning to share with Josh that very afternoon, before she overheard the phone call that destroyed everything. She was pregnant. The realization came 2 weeks into her new life, in her new city, in her new apartment that felt empty and wrong. Tamala stared at the positive test, her hands shaking so badly she nearly dropped it and felt her world shift again. The timing was impossible to deny. She was carrying the child of a man who had used her, who had seen her as nothing but a strategy, who had calculated every moment of their relationship. For one terrible moment, she considered her options. The choice was hers. No one would blame her for not wanting to carry a constant reminder of how she had been played. Then she placed her hand on her still flat stomach and felt something fierce and protective rise in her chest. This child was innocent. This child was not responsible for Josh's manipulation. This child was hers. "You are not a mistake," she whispered to the tiny life growing inside her. "You are mine, and I will protect you from him. I swear it. You will never know what it feels like to be someone's strategy." The pregnancy was difficult. Morning sickness hit her hard, made worse by the stress of starting over in a new city. Tamala worked through exhaustion and nausea, building a new life from the ashes of her broken heart. She threw herself into her work with an intensity that worried her new colleagues, staying late at the office because going home to her empty apartment felt unbearable. Solène visited when she could, providing support and reminding Tamala that she was not alone. She flew out for doctor's appointments, held Tamala's hand during the first ultrasound where they heard the baby's heartbeat for the first time. "Have you thought about telling him?" Solène asked once carefully as they looked at ultrasound photos. "No, he does not get to know her. He does not deserve her. She might want to know him someday. Then I will tell her the truth. That her father saw people as tools. That he used me for 6 months because it served his purposes. That every word he said to me was calculated. She deserves better than that. She deserves to be protected from someone who could do that to another person. Tamala threw herself into preparing for motherhood, into building her reputation in this new city, into creating a stable life for her daughter. Because she knew somehow that the baby was a girl. She could feel it in her bones, in the way she talked to her growing belly, in the dreams she had of a little girl with fierce eyes and unstoppable spirit. When Lily was born, tiny and perfect and screaming with outrage at the cold world, Tamala held her daughter and made a promise through her tears. No one will ever hurt you the way I was hurt. No one will ever use you. You will grow up knowing your worth, knowing you are loved unconditionally, knowing you are more than what anyone else sees when they look at you. Lily grew into a bright, curious toddler with Josh's eyes and Tamala's fierce spirit. Every time Tamala looked at her daughter, she saw echoes of the man she had loved and hated in equal measure. But she also saw herself, saw strength and resilience, saw proof that beauty could emerge from devastation. She dated occasionally, but nothing serious. No one could compare to what she had felt with Josh. Even knowing it had been a lie, her heart refused to forget how alive she had felt in his arms. So she poured that love into Lily instead, into her work, into building something meaningful that no one could take away. Life moved forward. Not easily, but it moved. Tamala believed she had successfully escaped her past, had built walls high enough that Josh Bowman could never hurt her again. She had created a good life for herself and her daughter. They were happy. They were safe. That was enough. Then came the conference. Tamala's firm insisted she attend, citing her growing reputation and the importance of networking. She agreed reluctantly, assuming the crowd would be large enough that she could avoid unwanted encounters. She brought Lily along, refusing to be apart from her daughter for the multi-day event. Lily was well-behaved enough to accompany her to some of the exhibits, and Tamala enjoyed showing her daughter the architectural models and designs. They were examining an intricate model of a sustainable housing development in one of the exhibit halls when Tamala felt eyes on her. The sensation crawled up her spine, familiar and unwelcome, making her skin prickle with awareness. She turned slowly, already knowing somehow what she would see, and there across the crowded room stood Josh. He looked terrible, thinner than she remembered, with shadows under his eyes, and a gauntness to his face that spoke of suffering. His expensive suit hung slightly loose on his frame. His hair, usually impeccably styled, looked like he had been running his hands through it. For one moment, Tamala felt a stab of vicious satisfaction. Good! He should suffer. He should know what it felt like to hurt. Then his gaze dropped to Lily, and Tamala watched the color drain from his face. Time slowed to a crawl. She saw the moment he did the calculations, saw realization crash over him like a wave. His eyes went wide, his mouth opening in shock. Then his gaze shot back to her, and she saw devastation there so complete it almost looked like grief. Tamala grabbed Lily's hand and turned away, her heart hammering against her ribs so hard it hurt. "Mama, who is that man?" Lily asked, her child's curiosity making her look back over her shoulder. "No one important, baby. Come on. Let us go look at the model in the next hall." But Josh was pushing through the crowd, desperation written across his features, his usual composure completely shattered. Tamala quickened her pace, pulling Lily along gently but firmly, but he caught up to them near the exit. "Tamala, please," he said, his voice rough and pleading. "Let me explain what happened. The phone call you overheard, it was not what you think. Darius Fleming staged the entire thing. I have proof. I would never." "Do not speak to me," Tamala interrupted, her voice low and trembling with suppressed fury. She positioned herself between Josh and Lily protectively. "Do not come near my daughter. Do not ever contact me again." "Our daughter," Josh whispered, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. "She is mine too. I can see it. She has my eyes. Tamala, please! Tamala felt rage surge through her, hot and cleansing, burning away any lingering softness she might have felt seeing him suffer. You lost any claim to her the moment you turned me into a strategic asset. The moment you saw me as demographic data instead of a person. She will never know a father who treats people like tools to be used and discarded. That is not what happened. Please, Tamala, just let me... No. She gathered Lily closer, the little girl, sensing tension and pressing against her leg. Stay away from us, I mean it. We do not need you. We do not want you. Just stay away. She turned and walked away, refusing to look back even though she could feel his stare boring into her back like a physical thing. Her hands shook as she led Lily out of the building as she hailed a taxi as they rode back to their hotel in silence. "Mama, why are you crying?" Lily asked softly, her small hand reaching up to touch Tamala's wet cheek. "I am not crying, baby." But she was. Silent tears streamed down her face as old wounds ripped open, as carefully built walls cracked and crumbled under the weight of seeing him again. Seeing Josh had brought everything back, the love, the betrayal, the devastation. She had thought herself healed, had believed the scar tissue was strong enough to protect her. But one look at him, and she was bleeding again, fresh and raw, as if no time had passed at all. That night, after Lily fell asleep, Tamala sat on the hotel balcony and let herself feel everything she had suppressed for years. The anger, the hurt, the small, traitorous part of her heart that had leaped when she saw him, that remembered what it felt like to love him before everything fell apart. She hated that part, hated that after everything. Some foolish piece of her still remembered the way he kissed her, the way he held her. The way he made her feel like she was the center of his universe. "I will not let you hurt her," she whispered into the darkness, making a vow to the absent Josh and to herself. "I will not let you hurt me again. We are better off without you. We have built a good life. We do not need you disrupting it with your lies and manipulations." But even as she said it, doubt whispered in the back of her mind, because Josh had looked destroyed. He had looked like a man who had lost everything that mattered. And that phone call he mentioned. What if there was more to the story? What if she had not heard everything? No, she could not let herself think that way. She had heard what she heard. She knew the truth. Josh Bowman had used her, and she would not give him a chance to do it again. She would not give him access to Lily so he could use their daughter the same way he had used her. She would protect Lily from the heartbreak of knowing her father. Saw people as assets to be managed rather than human beings to be loved, even if it meant carrying this pain alone for the rest of her life. Chapter 5. The Man Who Lost Everything. Josh stood frozen in the conference hall, watching Tamala disappear with their daughter, and felt his world collapse completely. His legs gave out. He sank into a nearby chair, his hands shaking, his vision blurring with tears he could not control. He had a child, a beautiful little girl, with his eyes and Tamala's fierce spirit, a daughter he had never known existed. And Tamala had hidden her from him deliberately, had spent years raising their child alone rather than let him be part of their lives. The realization should have made him angry. Instead, it broke something fundamental inside him, something that had been barely holding together since Tamala disappeared from his life. Because he understood why she had done it. He understood what she must have thought after overhearing that phone call. He understood that from her perspective, he was exactly the kind of man you protected your child from. A man who used people. A man who calculated relationships like business transactions. A man who would see even his own daughter as an asset to be managed. "Sir, are you all right?" A conference attendee hovered nearby, concerned by the sight of a grown man openly crying in a public space. Josh waved them off, forcing himself to stand on trembling legs. He needed to think. He needed to figure out how to fix this. But how did you fix something when the person you loved most in the world believed you had destroyed them deliberately? How did you prove love to someone who thought every moment you shared was calculation? The weeks following the conference were torture. Josh tried everything to reach Tamala. He sent letters that came back unopened, the envelopes marked "Return to Sender" in handwriting he did not recognize. He deposited substantial sums into accounts she immediately closed and donated to charity, a clear message that his money meant nothing to her. He showed up at her firm only to be turned away by security, who had clearly been given his photo and instructions. He tried calling from different numbers, but she must have blocked anything that came through, because he could never get past her voicemail. His assistant Brennan watched his deterioration with growing alarm. He stopped sleeping, stopped eating regularly, lost weight he could not afford to lose. His usually sharp focus dissolved into scattered distraction. "Josh, you have to pull yourself together," she said after he cancelled yet another important obligation. This time, a meeting with investors who were already nervous about his leadership. "The board is getting nervous. Let them be nervous. They are talking about removing you as CEO. They are saying you have become unreliable, that your personal problems are affecting your judgment." Josh looked at her with hollow eyes. "Then let them remove me. Your empire matters. Everything you have built is meaningless," Josh finished, his voice flat. "I've spent my entire life building something that means nothing. I thought success was the goal. I thought power and influence and wealth would make me happy. Then I met her, and I realized I'd been dead for years. She made me alive. And I lost her because someone set me up, and I could not reach her in time to explain." Brennan's expression softened. "Tell me what happened, all of it. Stop protecting your pride and just tell me." So Josh told her everything. The setup by his rival Darius Fleming, the carefully staged phone call designed to make him sound like he was using Tamala for corporate optics. The months of searching for her while not understanding why she had left. The discovery of the deception too late to matter. The agony of finally finding her only to learn she had been raising his daughter alone because she thought he was a monster. "Why did you not tell me this before?" Brennan demanded, anger coloring her usually professional tone. "Why did you let me think you were just pining over a woman who left you?" "Because I thought if I could just find her, I could explain. But she disappeared so completely, and now she thinks I saw her as a strategy, as demographic data. She thinks I used her deliberately, that I calculated every moment we shared. How do I prove that is not true when she will not even speak to me? Her due. You fight for her. You show her through actions, not words. Words are what got you into this mess. She will not let me near her. Then you find another way. Josh, you have spent your entire career solving impossible problems. Apply that same determination here. But what way was there? Josh attended events where he knew Tamala might appear, but she avoided him expertly, leaving rooms when he entered, taking different routes, always staying several steps ahead of him. He tried reaching out through mutual acquaintances, but no one would help him. He was persona non grata in her world, and rightfully so based on what she believed. His empire began crumbling from neglect. Josh could not summon the energy to care about acquisitions or deals or any of the things that used to consume him. His board held emergency meetings. His investors expressed concern. His competitors sensed weakness and circled like sharks, scenting blood in the water. Let them, Josh thought numbly. Let them take it all. None of it mattered without Tamala, without his daughter, whose name he did not even know. His brother flew in from overseas after hearing about his decline through the family grapevine. "You look like hell," his brother said bluntly, shocking Josh with his unannounced appearance. "I feel like hell. So fix it. Go talk to her. She will not talk to me. She thinks I used her. She thinks every moment we shared was manipulation. Then make her listen. Josh, you have never given up on anything in your life. Why are you giving up on this?" "Because I do not know how to fight someone who believes I betrayed them." How do you prove love to someone who thinks it was all manipulation? How do you show someone your heart when they believe you do not have one? His brother had no answer for that, but his presence helped slightly. He stayed for a week, making sure Josh ate, making sure he slept, forcing him to maintain some basic functionality even as his world fell apart. The final board meeting was brutal. They did not remove him, but only because the fallout would be worse than his current negligence. Instead, they issued an ultimatum: get your act together, or we will have no choice but to replace you for the good of the company. Josh sat in his penthouse that night, staring at the key Tamala had left behind years ago, still in his desk drawer where he had kept it like a talisman, and realized he was going to lose everything. Not just his empire, but any chance of having the family he desperately wanted, any chance of knowing his daughter, any chance of proving to Tamala that she had been wrong about him, unless he did something drastic. The charity gala presented an opportunity. Both he and Tamala had committed to attending before their disastrous encounter at the conference. She could not back out without causing professional problems. Neither could he. It would be crowded, public, impossible for either of them to make a scene. It was his chance, maybe his only chance, and he would have to make it count. Brennan tried to talk him out of his plan when he finally told her what he intended. "You will destroy your reputation," she warned, genuine fear in her eyes. "This will be career suicide. The board will absolutely remove you after this. I do not care about my reputation. I care about my family. Josh, this is insane. You cannot just... Then I will die professionally. But at least I will die telling the truth. At least I will have tried everything. I cannot live with myself if I do not try." The night of the gala, Josh barely heard the speeches and presentations. His focus remained locked on Tamala across the room, elegant and remote in a dress that made his heart ache. A wall of ice around her that he had built through no fault of his own, but could not seem to tear down. When the opportunity came for him to speak, a planned segment where he was supposed to discuss future philanthropic initiatives, Josh abandoned his prepared remarks entirely. He took the microphone with shaking hands and looked directly at Tamala, ignoring the hundreds of other people in the room. "I need to tell you all a story," he began, his voice steady, despite the fear coursing through him. "About how I fell in love with someone I did not deserve, and how I lost her because of a lie." The room fell silent. Tamala's eyes widened with shock and something that might have been fury or might have been fear. She started to stand, clearly intending to leave, but something made her hesitate. Josh told them everything. He named Darius Fleming and detailed the setup. He explained the phone call carefully orchestrated so that Tamala would overhear only the most damaging parts, stripped of context. He shared the months of searching for her, the discovery of the truth too late to matter, the agony of finding her again, only to learn he had a daughter he never knew about. "The woman I love believes I used her as a strategy, that I saw her as demographic data, as optics, as some corporate tool to improve my image. And I understand why she believes that. The evidence she heard was damning, but it is not true. She was never a strategy. She was the moment I stopped existing and started living. She was everything." He could see people whispering, pulling out phones to record this spectacular collapse. He did not care. His reputation, his career, his empire, none of it mattered anymore. "I do not expect forgiveness," Josh continued, his voice breaking slightly as emotion overwhelmed his control. "I do not deserve it. But Tamala, if you're listening, and I know you are, I need you to know that every moment with you was real. Every word I said was true. I love you. I have loved you since the moment I opened a door by mistake and saw you standing there. And I will love you until I die, whether you forgive me or not. Whether you let me know our daughter or not. My love is not conditional on your response. It just is." The silence that followed was deafening. Then Tamala stood, her face a mask of fury and pain and something more complicated, and walked out of the ballroom without a word. Josh watched her go, his public humiliation complete and total, and felt strangely lighter despite the devastation. He had told the truth. She had heard it. What she chose to do with that information was beyond his control, but at least now she knew. At least now the truth was out there, public and undeniable, witnessed by hundreds of people who could confirm that he had destroyed himself trying to reach her. It was the most he could do, the most he could offer. And if it was not enough, then he would spend the rest of his life living with that failure, because some loves were worth destroying yourself for. Some loves were worth burning down everything you built if it meant even the smallest chance of redemption. And Tamala Rose was his, would always be his, even if she never believed it. Chapter 6. Cracks in the Ice. Tamala stormed out of the gala, her body shaking with rage and something more dangerous, doubt that crept in, despite her best efforts to shut it out. She hailed a taxi with trembling hands and gave the driver her address, fighting back tears that burned behind her eyes. How dare he? How dare he turn their private pain into public spectacle? How dare he stand there in front of everyone and claim it was all a lie, a setup, that his rival had orchestrated everything to destroy them? How dare he try to rewrite history in front of hundreds of witnesses, except his desperation had seemed real. His tears had seemed genuine, and those details he mentioned, specific dates, names, the rival she knew he had issues with, they had the uncomfortable ring of truth. No, she could not let herself think that way. She had heard what she heard. She had stood in that hallway and listened to him discuss her like she was a project, like their relationship had a timeline and purpose that had nothing to do with love. But had she? The doubt whispered louder now. She had overheard part of a conversation. She had not heard the beginning or the end. She had not asked for context or explanation. She had simply run, assumed the worst, and built her entire reality around that assumption. "Stop it," she muttered to herself, earning a curious glance from the taxi driver in the rear-view mirror. "Stop making excuses for him." Solène was waiting at the apartment, watching Lily while Tamala attended the gala, and took one look at Tamala's face before sending the babysitter home and pouring wine. What happened? Tamala told her about Josh's speech, about his claims of being set up, about the public confession that had humiliated them both and probably destroyed what remained of his reputation. "Do you believe him?" Solène asked carefully, watching Tamala's face for clues. "I do not know what I believe anymore. I was so certain. For years, I have been absolutely certain that he used me. And now he is saying none of it was true. Then find out. Not for him, for yourself. You deserve to know the truth, whatever it is." Over the next week, Tamala did something she had sworn she would never do. She investigated. The decision did not come easily. Part of her wanted to maintain her righteous anger, wanted to keep believing in the betrayal because it was simpler than facing the possibility that she might have been wrong. But she could not ignore Josh's specific details. She contacted people who had been at his firm when Josh supposedly had that phone call. She looked into Darius Fleming's history and found a disturbing pattern of underhanded tactics against competitors, rumors of planted stories, manipulated situations, corporate espionage that never quite crossed into illegality but skirted dangerously close. She examined timelines and found inconsistencies in her own memory. The more she dug, the more the foundation of her certainty began to crack, and slowly, horribly, the truth emerged. Josh had been set up. The phone call had been about something completely different. A consultation about diversity initiatives across the industry, not about their personal relationship at all. His rival had fed him false information about supposed board concerns, while ensuring Tamala would be in position to overhear only the most damaging phrases stripped of all context. Tamala sat in her apartment, surrounded by evidence that she had been wrong, and felt her world shift again. The document spread across her coffee table told a story completely different from the one she had believed for years. She had spent years hating Josh for something he had not done. She had kept his daughter from him because of a lie that was not his. She had built her entire life around that betrayal, and it had never been real. He had been telling the truth at the gala. He had destroyed himself publicly trying to reach her, and she had walked away without even considering that he might be right. The guilt was crushing. The shame was unbearable. But underneath those feelings lived something else, a small, terrified flutter of hope that she tried desperately to suppress but could not quite kill. "Mama, why do you look so sad?" Lily asked, climbing into her lap with her favorite stuffed bear clutched tight. "I'm just thinking, baby. About the man from the party. The one who was crying?" Tamila's breath caught. "What do you mean he was crying?" "When he was talking at the fancy party. He was crying and looking at you like you were the most important thing in the whole world. He looked like he lost something precious. Like when I lost my favorite bear, and you said we would search everywhere until we found it. That kind of sad, out of the mouths of children." Tamila held her daughter close, breathing in her sweet scent, and made a decision that terrified her. She needed to see Josh. She needed to hear the full truth from him. She needed to face what she had done by running without asking questions. She owed him that much. She owed their daughter that much. She owed herself the truth, whatever it was, but fear held her back. What if she let him in again and got hurt? What if she was wrong about the setup? What if she exposed Lily to disappointment and heartbreak? What if this was just another manipulation, more sophisticated and convincing than the last? The universe made the decision for her. Tamila took Lily to the grocery store on an evening when the roads were slick with ice, when winter had arrived suddenly and the city had not quite adjusted. They were singing along to the radio, laughing about something silly Lily had said when another car ran a red light. Tamila saw it coming. Time slowed to a crawl. She wrenched the wheel, trying desperately to protect Lily in the back seat, but physics and momentum were cruel masters that answered to no one. The impact was deafening. Metal screamed. Glass shattered like 1,000 diamonds exploding. Pain exploded through Tamila's body, sharp and all-consuming. And then everything went dark, and her last conscious thought was a prayer that Lily was safe. Chapter 7. When everything breaks open. Tamila woke to fluorescent lights and the smell of antiseptic that immediately told her she was in a hospital. Her head throbbed with a pain that made thought difficult. Her ribs screamed every time she tried to breathe. But none of that mattered because she could not see Lily, could not hear her, could not know if her daughter was safe. "My daughter," she gasped, trying to sit up and crying out as pain lanced through her torso. "Where is Lily? Is she okay? Please tell me she is okay." "Easy," a nurse said, gently pushing her back down against the pillows. "Your daughter is fine." Minor concussion and some bruising, but the scans came back clear. "She is with her father, her father." The words did not make sense. Lily did not have a father in her life. Tamila blinked, confused and disoriented, trying to make sense of words that felt impossible. Then Josh appeared in the doorway. He looked worse than at the gala. Unshaven, exhausted, his clothes wrinkled like he had been wearing them for days without change. But when he saw her awake, relief flooded his face so completely that Tamila felt tears spring to her eyes despite everything between them. "Where is Lily?" she demanded, her voice rough. "I need to see her. She is sleeping in the children's ward. The doctor said she's fine, minor concussion, but the scans are clear. She was asking for you, asking when Mama would wake up." Tamila closed her eyes, overwhelmed with relief and residual terror. "I thought I lost her. When we were spinning and I could not control the car, I thought, but you did not. You protected her. You did everything right. The way you turned the wheel at the last second, the paramedics said it probably saved her life." His voice was so gentle, so full of genuine care, despite everything she had done to him, that Tamila felt her remaining defenses crumble. She opened her eyes to find him watching her with an expression that held no anger, no resentment, no bitterness, just love and concern and relief that she was alive. "How are you here?" she whispered. "Someone listed me as your emergency contact months ago. I think your friend Solène did it without telling you, just in case. I got the call, and I broke every traffic law getting to the hospital. I could not—" His voice broke. "I could not bear the thought of you being hurt and alone. You should not have come. Try and stop me." He moved closer, his hand hovering near hers but not quite touching, respecting her boundaries even now. "Tamala, I know you do not want me here. I know you think I betrayed you, but I could not stay away. Not when you and Lily needed help. Not when there was even the smallest chance I could be useful. You said you were set up. I was. I have proof if you want to see it. Documentation, witness statements, everything. But right now, I just want to make sure you are both okay. Everything else can wait." Tamala studied him, really studied him. She saw the shadows under his eyes that spoke of sleepless nights stretching back weeks or months. She saw the weight loss that suggested months of suffering and neglect. She saw a man who looked like he had been through hell and was still standing, still fighting, still hoping despite having every reason to give up. "I investigated," she admitted quietly, the confession feeling like both relief and burden. "After the gala, I looked into everything you said. The rival, the timeline, the setup. And Josh, I think you were telling the truth. I think I made a terrible mistake." His breath caught audibly. "You believe me?" "I think so. There is so much to process, so much damage to understand. But I do not think you used me. I do not think any of it was fake." A single tear tracked down Josh's cheek, cutting through the stubble. It was real, all of it. Every moment, every word, every promise. It was all real, more real than anything else in my life. "I kept your daughter from you," Tamala whispered, her voice breaking as guilt crushed her chest. "I was so sure you had betrayed me, and I kept her from you for years. Josh, I am so sorry. I robbed you of so much time with her." "No!" He finally took her hand, squeezing gently, his touch warm and solid and real. "No, you do not apologize. You protected your child based on what you believed was true. You did what any good mother would do. You did nothing wrong. I did not even give you a chance to explain. I just ran. You heard what you heard. Of course you ran. Anyone would have." He brought her hand to his lips, kissing her knuckles softly, reverently. "I do not blame you for any of it. I just want my family back. If you will have me. If you can forgive me for not being more careful, for not seeing the trap, for not finding you faster once I knew the truth." Tamala wanted to say yes immediately, wanted to pull him close and never let go, wanted to erase the years of pain and start over. But fear still whispered in the back of her mind. What if she was making another mistake? What if she was seeing what she wanted to see, rather than what was real? "I need time," she said, watching his face carefully for any sign of manipulation or calculation. "I need to be sure. For Lily's sake. She deserves stability, not chaos. She deserves parents who are certain." Pain flickered in Josh's eyes, but he nodded without hesitation. "I understand. Take all the time you need. I will be here. I will prove myself however long it takes, even if I decide I cannot do this." The pain deepened, but his voice remained steady. "Even then, even if you never forgive me for something I did not do, I will be here. Because you are my family, both of you, and I will protect you until my last breath, whether you want me in your life or not." Over the next several days, while Tamala recovered in the hospital, Josh proved his words true. He stayed nearby without being intrusive, respecting the boundaries she set while making himself available whenever she needed something. He brought her things she needed before she asked, her favorite books, comfortable clothes, the specific tea she liked when she was stressed. He read stories to Lily and made her giggle with silly voices, gentle and patient with the daughter he had just met. Tamala watched them together through the observation window and felt her heart crack open. Lily took to Josh immediately, sensing the same thing Tamala did, that this man genuinely cared, that his love was not performance but truth. One night, after Lily had fallen asleep in the hospital chair with Josh's jacket tucked around her as a blanket, Tamala finally spoke the words she had been holding back. "I still love you. I tried so hard not to. I tried to hate you. I tried to forget you. But I never stopped loving you." Josh looked up from where he had been watching their daughter sleep, his eyes bright with unshed tears. "I never stopped either, not for a single moment. Not even when I thought you were lost to me forever. I am scared. So am I. We can be scared together. We can take it slow. We can do whatever you need to feel safe." Tamala reached for him, and Josh came to her bedside immediately, careful not to jar her injuries. She touched his face, feeling the stubble rough against her palm, tracing the new lines that grief had carved into his features, and saw nothing but honesty in his eyes. "If we do this," she said quietly, "it has to be real. No games, no walls. Complete honesty, even when it hurts. Especially when it hurts. I can do that. I will do that. Tamala, I will spend the rest of my life proving you can trust me. I will never give you reason to doubt me again." "Okay," she whispered, taking the leap that terrified her. "Okay, let us try." Josh kissed her softly, reverently, like she was made of spun glass, and he was afraid of breaking her. When they broke apart, he rested his forehead against hers, both of them breathing together, finding their rhythm again. "I will not let you down. I promise you that with everything I am." And looking into his eyes, seeing her own reflection there, Tamala let herself believe him. She let herself hope that maybe, just maybe, they could build something stronger from the ruins of what they had lost. Because some loves were worth fighting for. Some loves were worth the risk of being hurt again. Some loves were worth believing in even when every instinct screamed to protect yourself. And Josh Bowman, despite everything, was hers, had always been hers. And perhaps she was finally ready to claim him again. Chapter 8. Rebuilding from Ruins. Tamala was released from the hospital with strict instructions to rest and heal. Her ribs would take time, the doctors warned, and she needed to avoid any strenuous activity for several weeks. Josh offered to take them back to his place where he could help with Lily, but Tamala insisted on returning to her own apartment. She needed to move slowly, needed to rebuild trust step by careful step. Josh respected her boundaries without complaint. He came by daily to help with Lily, to bring meals that Tamala did not have the energy to cook, to give Tamala time to rest while he entertained their daughter. Watching them together filled Tamala with a bittersweet ache. This was what she had stolen from both of them by running. This easy rapport, these shared jokes, this obvious love between father and daughter. "You need to stop torturing yourself," Selene told her one afternoon while Josh took Lily to the park. "You made a decision based on what you thought was true. You were trying to protect your child. I kept his daughter from him. I robbed him of her first steps, her first words, her birthdays. I cannot get that time back for him." "No, you cannot. But you are giving him the chance to know her now. That is what matters. You are giving him a future with her." But the guilt lingered, a constant weight on Tamala's chest that hurt more than her broken ribs. She found herself watching Josh carefully, still looking for cracks in his facade, still waiting for the moment he would reveal this was all an elaborate revenge. But that moment never came. He was patient and kind, never pushing for more than she was ready to give, content to simply be part of their lives in whatever capacity she allowed. "Tell me what I missed," Josh said one evening after Lily had gone to bed. They sat together on the couch, a careful distance between them that had become familiar. "Tell me about when she was born. About her first words, her first steps. I want to know everything." So Tamala told him. About the difficult pregnancy filled with loneliness and fear. About the terrifying labor when she thought something was wrong and there was no one to hold her hand. About the moment Lily was born screaming and perfect, and Tamala had looked at her daughter and seen Josh's eyes staring back at her. About sleepless nights when she walked the floor with a colicky baby, exhausted and alone, but refusing to regret her choice. About first smiles that made all the hardship worthwhile. About all the tiny milestones that made up a life. Josh listened with an intensity that made her chest ache, occasionally asking questions, sometimes wiping at his eyes when the emotions became too much. His pain was palpable, the weight of everything he had missed pressing down on him visibly. Her first word was, "Mama," Tamala said softly. But her second was book. She has always loved stories. She gets that from you. Maybe, but she has your eyes, your stubbornness, your determination. Sometimes when she sets her jaw a certain way, I see you so clearly, it takes my breath away. Josh smiled sadly. I wish I could have been there. For all of it, I would give anything to have those memories. I wish you could have too. I'm so sorry, Josh. I thought I was protecting her, but I was just hurting both of you. Stop. You were protecting your child from what you believed was a threat. You were being a good mother. I will never blame you for that. The honesty between them felt fragile but real. They were learning each other again, discovering who they had become in their time apart. Josh spoke about how hollow his life had become after losing her, how success meant nothing without them, how he had drifted through days in a fog until seeing her at the conference had jolted him back to painful awareness. Tamala admitted how many times she had almost reached out, almost given him a chance to explain, but fear had stopped her every time. She told him about the nights she cried herself to sleep, about the moments she saw couples together and felt the absence of him like a physical wound. I was so scared of being hurt again, she confessed. I had given you everything. When I thought you betrayed me, it felt like dying. I would rather die myself than hurt you that way. You have to know that. I am starting to. Their relationship rebuilt slowly, like constructing something from broken pieces that had to be carefully fitted back together. They went on careful dates with Lily, learning to be a family. They held hands in the park while their daughter played. They shared hesitant kisses that gradually deepened into something more passionate, but Tamala maintained firm boundaries. Josh slept at his own place. They did not rush back into the physical intimacy they had shared before. She needed to be certain, needed to feel safe before giving herself completely again. Josh never complained, never pressured, never even hinted that he wanted more than she was offering. He followed her lead with a patience that spoke of genuine love rather than strategic calculation. I would wait forever, he told her when she apologized for moving slowly. You are worth any amount of waiting. I would wait lifetimes, if that is what you needed. Then came the evening that changed everything. They had taken Lily to the aquarium, a perfect family day filled with laughter and wonder. Lily was fascinated by everything, pressing her face against the glass and chattering excitedly about the fish. Josh carried her on his shoulders through the crowds, pointing out different creatures and making up silly stories that had her giggling uncontrollably. Tamala walked beside them, watching her family, and that is what they were, she realized. A family, and felt her heart swell with something that felt like home. On the drive home, Lily fell asleep in her car seat, exhausted and happy, her small face peaceful. Josh glanced in the rearview mirror and smiled softly. She is perfect, he said quietly, careful not to wake her. Thank you for making her. Thank you for raising her into such an amazing little person. We made her together. I mean, thank you for doing it alone when you thought you had to. Thank you for being an incredible mother, for keeping her safe and loved even when you were doing it alone and scared. Tamala reached over and squeezed his hand. You are a good father, Josh. She adores you. She talks about you constantly when you are not here. I adore her. And I adore you. Back at the apartment, they put Lily to bed together, a routine they had fallen into over the past weeks. Josh read her a story, while Tamala straightened up the room, both of them working in comfortable harmony that felt natural and right. Good night, princess, Josh whispered, kissing Lily's forehead tenderly. Night. Daddy, Lily mumbled, already half asleep. Josh froze. Tamala's breath caught. Lily had never called him that before, had been carefully saying Josh the way Tamala had instructed. not wanting to confuse her daughter or assume too much too soon. Josh looked at Tamala with tears streaming down his face, his expression asking permission, asking if this was okay, asking if he was allowed to claim this title he had earned through weeks of patient love. Tamala nodded, her own eyes wet. "It is okay. She can call you Daddy if she wants to. You are her father." They left the room together, and as soon as the door closed behind them, Josh broke down completely. Tamala held him while he sobbed into her shoulder, years of loss and longing pouring out in broken gasps. "She called me Daddy," he whispered between broken breaths. I never thought, I know. I heard. I thought I would never get to hear that. I thought I lost that forever." Tamala pulled back to look at him, cupping his face in her hands and wiping away his tears with her thumbs. "You have not lost anything. You are her father. You have always been her father. I'm sorry it took so long for her to say it. I love you," Josh said desperately, the words tumbling out. "God, Tamala, I love you so much it terrifies me. I love you and Lily more than life itself. I love you too." I never stopped. I think I knew even when I was running that I would never stop loving you. They kissed with months of longing behind it, with forgiveness and hope and future all tangled together. Josh lifted her carefully, mindful of her still healing ribs, and carried her to the couch. They made out like teenagers, touching and tasting, relearning the map of each other's bodies with hands that trembled with emotion. "I want you," Tamala whispered against his mouth. "I want you to stay tonight. I want to stop being afraid and just be with you." "Are you sure?" "We can wait as long as you need. I have never been more sure of anything. Stay. Please stay." They made love slowly, reverently, like rediscovering something sacred they thought was lost forever. Josh worshipped every inch of her skin, murmuring how beautiful she was, how much he had missed this, how he would never take it for granted again. Tamala let herself fall completely, holding nothing back, trusting him with her body and her heart and her future. Afterward, tangled together in her bed, with moonlight streaming through the windows, Josh pulled her close and kissed her temple. "Marry me," he whispered into her hair. "What?" "Marry me. Not because of anyone else, or any reason except that I cannot imagine my life without you and Lily. Marry me because I want to spend every day proving I deserve you." Tamala lifted her head to look at him, seeing nothing but sincerity in his eyes. "Are you serious?" "Completely. I know it is fast after everything we have been through. I know you might need more time. But Tamala, I want to be your husband. I want to be Lily's father officially. I want us to be a real family in every way. We already are a real family. Then marry me anyway. Make it official. Let me stand up in front of everyone and promise to love you and protect you and be there for you always. Let me show the world that you are mine and I am yours." Tamala felt tears slide down her cheeks. "Yes, God, yes. I will marry you." Josh kissed her deeply, putting everything he felt into it. When they finally broke apart, both breathless and crying and laughing simultaneously, he held her face in his hands. "I will never let you down. I promise you that with everything I am. I know. I trust you." And she did. After everything they had been through, after all the pain and misunderstanding and lost time, Tamala trusted Josh Bowman with her whole heart. Because some loves were destroyed by obstacles, but the strongest loves used those obstacles as foundation, building something unbreakable from the rubble of almost losing everything. Chapter 9. The Storm Before Peace. Josh and Tamala moved forward with wedding plans, but neither wanted something elaborate. They had both learned the hard way that grand gestures meant nothing compared to genuine commitment. They decided on something small and intimate, just family and close friends, focused on the promises they were making rather than the spectacle. Lily was thrilled to be part of the planning. She spent hours discussing flower colors and cake flavors with the seriousness of someone planning a royal wedding, her little face scrunched up in concentration as she weighed important decisions. Josh indulged her completely, taking her to bakeries for taste tests and letting her pick out her flower girl dress. which she changed her mind about several times before settling on one with sparkles. "She has you wrapped around her finger," Tamala observed, watching them debate the merits of different frosting types with the intensity of diplomats negotiating treaties. "Completely," Josh agreed, not even bothering to deny it. "I have years of spoiling to make up for. She deserves to be a little princess." But as the wedding approached, complications emerged that tested their newly rebuilt foundation. Josh's board expressed concern about him marrying someone with a child from their relationship, worried about how it looked, about potential complications with inheritance and control of the company, about shareholders questioning his judgment. Josh told them to mind their business or find another leader. "This is my family," he stated flatly during one particularly contentious meeting, his voice cold with barely contained fury. "And if anyone has a problem with that, they can leave now. I will not negotiate my family for your comfort." Tamala worried that his defiance would cause problems, that he was sacrificing too much for her. But Josh was unmoved. "I already almost lost you once because I let other people's opinions matter. Never again. Nothing matters more than our family. Not the board, not the shareholders, not my reputation, nothing." Then there was the matter of Tamala's position. Her firm wanted her back in the city permanently, offering a promotion that would solidify her career, but require relocating again. The opportunity was incredible. Lead designer on a major sustainable housing initiative that could reshape how communities were built. Josh immediately offered to move wherever she needed, to uproot his entire life without hesitation. "My work can be done from anywhere. Yours requires you to be on site. The choice is obvious," but Tamala hesitated. "Your life is here. Your company, your connections, everything you have built. My family is where you are. Everything else is negotiable." "Tamala, I'm not letting my career come between us. Not again. Not ever." They talked long into the night about what their future would look like, where they would live, how they would handle two demanding careers, how to give Lily stability while pursuing their own ambitions. The conversations were sometimes difficult, touching on fears and insecurities neither wanted to acknowledge. "We will figure it out together," Josh promised, holding her close when the uncertainty became overwhelming. "That is what partnership means. We face the challenges as a team. We make decisions together. We support each other's dreams." But doubt crept in despite his reassurances. Tamala found herself lying awake, wondering if they were moving too fast. If the foundation they had rebuilt was strong enough to support the weight of marriage and blended lives, and all the complications that came with it. "What if I am making another mistake?" she confessed to Selene over coffee. "What if this all falls apart again? Then you will survive it like you survived before. But Tamala, you cannot live your life afraid of being hurt. Josh has proven himself over and over. He has been patient and honest and there for you through everything. At some point, you have to take the leap. I just keep remembering how it felt when I thought he betrayed me. I do not know if I could survive that again." "You would, because you are stronger than you give yourself credit for. But I do not think you will have to. That man loves you and Lily more than anything in this world. You can see it in everything he does." Tamala knew Selene was right, but fear had claws that dug deep and refused to let go. She had given Josh her trust once and thought it was shattered. Even knowing the truth now, even believing in his love, some part of her waited for the other shoe to drop. Some part of her remained perpetually braced for impact. Josh sensed her hesitation. One evening after they put Lily to bed, he sat her down and took both her hands in his expression serious. "Talk to me. Tell me what is going on in your head." "I am scared," Tamala admitted, the confession feeling like weakness. "I am scared of being this happy, because last time I was this happy, it all came crashing down." That was not real happiness. That was happiness built on a lie you believed. This is different. This is built on truth. How do I know it will not happen again? How do I know something will not come between us? Josh was quiet for a long moment, choosing his words carefully. "You do not know. Neither do I. We cannot predict the future or control everything that might happen. Life is unpredictable. People can hurt us even when they do not mean to. But Tamala, we can choose how we face it. We can choose to trust each other, to communicate, to fight for us, instead of running when things get hard. I ran before. Because you thought you had to. Because you thought I betrayed you. That is not going to happen again. I will never give you reason to doubt me. And if something does happen, if we face challenges, we will face them together. You will not have to run. You will not have to protect yourself alone. I will be right there beside you. What if your board forces you to choose between me and your position? Then I choose you. Every single time, without hesitation, I choose you and Lily. What if my career requires moving and yours requires staying? Then we figure it out together. Maybe I move. Maybe we find a compromise. Maybe one of us sacrifices for the other and we take turns. The point is, we face it as a team. Nothing is more important than us staying together. Tamala looked at their joined hands and felt some of the fear loosen its grip. I want to believe it will work. Then believe it. Trust me, trust us. We have been through hell and come out the other side. We can handle whatever comes next. She squeezed his hands. Okay, I am choosing to believe. That is all I ask. They sealed the promise with a kiss, and Tamala felt the last pieces of her shattered heart finally click back into place. Not healed without scars. The scars would always be there, reminders of what they had survived. But whole again, strong again, ready to build something that could weather any storm. The night before the wedding, Tamala could not sleep. She stood at her window, looking out at the city lights, thinking about how far they had come and how much further they had to go, when she heard soft footsteps behind her. Mama? Lily stood in the doorway, clutching her stuffed bear, her eyes sleepy. Why are you awake? Just thinking, baby. Come here. Lily climbed into her lap and Tamala held her close, breathing in her daughter's sweet scent. Tomorrow she would marry Josh. Tomorrow they would officially become a family. Tomorrow everything would change in ways both exciting and terrifying. Are you happy, Mama? Lily asked sleepily. So happy, baby. Happier than I have ever been. Me too. I always wanted a daddy. And Josh is the best daddy. Tamala's eyes filled with tears. He really is he not? Yeah, and now we all get to be together forever and ever. Forever. The word that used to terrify her now felt like a promise, like hope, like home. Tomorrow she would walk down the aisle toward a future that once seemed impossible, toward a man who had never stopped loving her, even when she believed the worst of him, toward a family built from ashes and mistakes and second chances. And for the first time in years, Tamala was not afraid. Chapter 10, Where Love Rebuilds. The morning of the wedding dawned clear and bright. Tamala woke to Lily jumping on her bed, chattering excitedly about finally getting to wear her special dress and carry flowers down the aisle like a real princess. Mama, is it time yet? Can I put my dress on now? Tamala laughed, pulling her daughter close for a hug. Not yet, baby. We have a few hours. Solène arrived with breakfast and helped Tamala get ready, keeping conversation light and cheerful. But as Tamala stood in her simple ivory dress, looking at herself in the mirror, emotion swelled in her chest. You look beautiful, Solène said softly. I cannot believe this is happening. After everything, I get to marry him. You deserve this happiness. You both do. The ceremony was held in a small garden, with only their closest people in attendance. Celestine sat in the front row, dabbing at her eyes with a handkerchief. Josh's brother stood beside him as best man, looking thrilled to see his sibling finally at peace. But it was Josh's face when Tamala walked down the aisle that made her heart stop. He looked at her like she hung the moon, like she was the most incredible thing he had ever seen. Tears streamed down his cheeks unashamedly. Lily walked ahead of Tamala, taking her role as flower girl very seriously, carefully dropping petals along the path. When she reached Josh, she threw her arms around his legs in a spontaneous hug that made everyone laugh and cry simultaneously. Tamala joined them at the altar, and Josh took her hands in his, holding them like they were the most precious things in existence. The officiant spoke about love and commitment, about choosing each other through trials and triumphs. But Tamala barely heard the words. She was lost in Josh's eyes, in the future she saw reflected there. When it came time for vows, Josh spoke first. "Tamala, meeting you was not an accident. It was fate. You woke me up from a life I did not realize was meaningless. You showed me what love actually means. Not possession or control, but partnership and trust and choosing someone every single day. I promise to be worthy of you. I promise to be the father Lily deserves. I promise to fight for our family through whatever comes. And I promise that every morning I will wake up grateful that you gave me another chance." Tamala blinked back tears. "Josh, you taught me that love is worth the risk. That vulnerability is not weakness but strength. You showed me that some people are worth believing in, even when it is terrifying. I promise to trust you. I promise to communicate instead of running. I promise to be a partner you can rely on. And I promise to remind you every day that you are loved completely, exactly as you are." They exchanged rings, and when the officiant pronounced them married, Josh kissed her with a tenderness that stole her breath. Lily cheered loudly, and everyone laughed through their tears. At the reception, Josh gave a toast that had everyone reaching for tissues. "I spent my whole life chasing success, building and acquiring and conquering. Then I opened a wrong door and found the only thing that actually mattered. My wife, God, I love saying that. My wife and our daughter are my greatest achievement. Everything else is just noise. Thank you for being here to celebrate with us. And Tamala, thank you for giving me forever." They danced together, Lily squished between them, all three holding on to each other like they would never let go. Later, when they returned home as a married family, Josh carried a sleeping Lily to her bed while Tamala watched from the doorway. He tucked their daughter in carefully, kissing her forehead and whispering, "I love you, princess." In their own room, Josh pulled Tamala close and just held her, both of them overwhelmed by the significance of the day. They made love slowly, savoring each touch, each kiss, each whispered word of love. It was not desperate or frantic, but certain, the intimacy of two people who knew they had forever ahead of them. Afterward, wrapped in each other's arms, Tamala reflected on their journey. The accidental meeting, the intense connection, the devastating betrayal that never actually happened, the months of pain and separation, finding each other again, rebuilding from broken pieces. "What are you thinking?" Josh asked, running his fingers through her hair. "That we took the hard road to get here. But maybe that is what made it strong. Our foundation is solid because it was tested. We know we can survive anything now." They fell asleep, tangled together, and when morning came, they woke to Lily climbing into bed between them. Josh looked at Tamala across their daughter's head, and the love in his eyes was so profound it made her chest ache in the best possible way. This was what mattered, not grand gestures or public declarations. Just this, three people choosing each other every single day. A family built from rubble and mistakes and second chances. Love that survived being tested and emerged stronger for it. Josh Bowman had spent his life acquiring things. But his greatest discovery was not something he could buy or negotiate or conquer. It was something he found by accident and nearly lost through circumstances beyond his control. And now, holding his wife and daughter close while morning light streamed through the windows, he understood that true wealth had nothing to do with power or influence. True wealth was this moment, this family, this love that survived everything thrown at it and refused to break. And that was worth more than any empire ever built.